What happened when Diane Keaton arrived on Jimmy Kimmel Live in her usual glamorous and quirky style, ready to entertain and engage in the kind of light banter fans adore her for? The audience welcomed her with loud applause as she waved and smiled, brightly, her presence immediately lighting up the room. Jimmy began the segment with some classic jokes and a compliment about her unique fashion sense, something Diane always plays along with in good humor. The conversation started smoothly with a few stories about her upcoming film and some vintage Hollywood memories which had the crowd laughing and reminiscing. Diane was her usual animated self, gesturing wildly and throwing in witty comebacks that kept the energy high and engaging. Jimmy seemed to be enjoying himself too, playing along with her tangents and poking fun at some of her more eccentric comments. But things took a turn when Jimmy brought up a controversial moment from a recent interview Diane had given in which she criticized modern celebrity culture and what she called the fakeness of Hollywood's younger stars. He jokingly asked if she was becoming a cranky elder or just speaking her truth. At first Diane laughed it off, but her smile quickly faded when Jimmy wouldn't let the subject go. He read out a few social media responses from younger actors who had taken offense to her comments, some of whom had called her out publicly. Diane looked visibly irritated and reminded Jimmy that she had been misquoted and that she wasn't trying to insult anyone but instead critique the system that rewards superficiality over substance. Jimmy pushed back, saying that in today's age, even light criticism is interpreted personally and that public figures need to be aware of that. Diane responded sharply, saying that real artists speak honestly, and that she wasn't going to censor herself to please people who care more about likes than craft. She added that she had earned the right to speak her mind after decades in the industry. Jimmy tried to inject humor again, but Diane wasn't having it and accused him of trying to turn the conversation into clickbait. The tone of the interview shifted drastically as the two began talking over each other. Jimmy suggested that maybe Diane's approach was a little harsh and that it's possible to critique the industry without sounding condescending. Diane fired back, saying she was tired of being told how to talk or what to think and that late-night hosts like him thrive on stirring drama under the guise of humor. The studio audience grew noticeably quieter, sensing the discomfort growing on stage. Diane took a deep breath and tried to move the conversation back to her film, but Jimmy again circled back to the backlash and whether she felt responsible for the negative reactions. Diane's frustration became more apparent as she raised her voice slightly, saying she wouldn't apologize for having standards and expecting more from the art form she dedicated her life to. Jimmy shrugged and joked that maybe this was just another Hollywood diva moment, to which Diane stood up, slowly looked at him and said that being passionate doesn't make her a diva, it makes her real. The room fell silent as she removed her mic and told Jimmy she didn't want to continue being part of a segment that disrespected her intent and twisted her words for entertainment. She calmly walked off the stage with grace, but also a firm sense of resolve, leaving Jimmy momentarily speechless and unsure how to transition. He tried to save face by throwing to commercial and making a half-hearted joke, but the awkwardness lingered. The crew scrambled behind the scenes as the audience looked around, unsure if it was all part of a bit or genuinely unexpected. Social media immediately lit up with clips and reactions, with fans split between praising Diane for standing up for herself and calling out Jimmy for pushing too hard for viral content. Some viewers criticized the segment for lacking respect, while others felt it highlighted the growing generational divide in Hollywood. Later that night, Diane posted a short statement on Instagram saying she stood by her beliefs and that being honest wasn't something she'd ever apologize for. Support poured in from both fans and fellow actors who said her courage and integrity were refreshing in a time of over-polished celebrity branding. Meanwhile, Jimmy avoided directly addressing the walk-off in subsequent episodes but made vague references to heated interviews and the challenges of live TV. Behind-the-scenes reports suggested producers were reevaluating how far interviews should be allowed to go, especially when discussing controversial topics. The clip of Diane walking off has since racked up millions of views, with debates continuing over who was right and whether talk shows are becoming more about spectacle than substance. What was meant to be a fun appearance turned into one of the Most talked about moments in Diane Keaton's long and storied career. Regardless of opinion, one thing is clear, Diane Keaton's walk-off has reignited conversations about respect, authenticity, and the fine line between honest dialogue and sensationalism. In the world of celebrity interviews,